Hello everyone. So welcome. So now in this video, what we are going to do is we are going to talk about the basic configuration of the Fortigate firewall. All right. Now, see, when it comes to the configuration of the Fortigate firewall, there are n number of things that can be configured as per the requirement of the customer or the client. Okay. But I'm going to talk about those 5 steps or those 5 things that you have to configure in the Fortigate firewall, regardless of what kind of a setup or deployment that you go through. Okay. So we're going to talk about those 5 steps and how can you configure those and what are the best implementations that you can go for. Okay, so we're going to talk about these things and furthermore. All right, so let's dig into it. Now, see, I'll be sharing my screen quickly, and I'm going to show you what will be what will be covering up today. Okay, now see, in this particular section of the basic setup, okay, we are going to talk about something which is called as the interface configuration. Okay, the next comes the host name, right? Third, default route. Fourth, DNS configuration, and fifth is internet connectivity. This internet connectivity could also be, you can also call it as an ISP connectivity. You can also call it as your MPLS connectivity. That again depends on your customer's requirement, but end of the day is you need to have some kind of a connectivity towards the larger network, towards a larger ISP. Okay, so we're going to talk about these 5 things today. Now, the first thing is the interface configuration. So if we look into the interface configuration, we have a couple of things. One is the WAN, which you can also call it as an outside, right? Then we have something which is called as LAN as inside, and then we have a DMZ or a server farm, network farm, or whatever you want to call those, because every network, every customer environment have some kind of a DMZ environment where they host their servers, they host their resources which is available for the company or for the public from the outside as well, right? So those kind of information or those kind of resources can also be applied in the DMZ. How do you configure it? What's the best practices and how you can proceed with those? This is going to talk about the interface one. Okay, now let's move on. Now the first thing is that I'm going to use a Fortigate over here. Okay, now I've just did a factory reset on this. Okay, so this does not have anything. It does not have any kind of previous configuration. It's a plain configuration right now. Okay, so let's see once we connect to this once. So this is on an EventG platform which we can configure whenever we want. So I'm going to click on this, and yeah, so we can see that as of now it's booting up. Okay, and in this process it will generate a serial number, and then it will apply the evaluation license, and once the evaluation license is done, it's going to give us the prompt. Okay, now one thing which we have to also see is in this particular prompt we would look for something which is called as by default, we do not have any kind of a username or password into this. Okay, the only username and password which we have is admin, and password is basically blank, does not have anything. So this is by default with every Fortigate firewall out there. If it is a newly bought firewall, this won't have anything. It will be blank. So you have to just hit on enter. As soon as you do this, you are going to get up a prompt to change the password. Okay, now you can put up any password that you want over here. I'm going to do the same. All right, and once you do this, when you confirm the password, you'll get into the home screen. Okay, now this is the Fortigate VM64. It's a VM setup that I have, right? So this is what I'll get. Now from here onwards, there are a couple of things that you should be looking at. Okay, so let me just zoom this a little bit more. Okay, now one thing is that you will be going with the get system status command. Okay, so the get system status command basically will show you information about the Fortigate firewall and what kind of firmware it has, the time and the UTM updates and all these things. Okay, so if I hit enter over here, it's going to show up. It's a Fortigate VM 7.0. Okay, it's a GA, which is general availability. All right, and the UTM databases, IPS app and IPS malicious. See, these databases are there. Now again, you can ignore this up again because these are it's evaluation license. You won't be updating itself, right? Now, although we in my Fortigate firewall course, I'm go into quite detailed into exact every line that we see over here. Okay, every detail about each and every line that we have, and what's the point of it, what's the reason, logic, and situations and scenarios. Okay, now the first thing is, once your username and password is set, the next thing is to check what IP you can use to get to the web GUI. That's the first thing, right? Because in the interface configuration, the first thing is to get to the web GUI. All right. Now, again, in your virtual environment, you have to give an IP address. But if it is a hardware model, if any Fortigate hardware model, it will come with the default IP of 192.168.1.99. That's the default IP. But if in case you have a VM environment just like this, or you are planning or you are practicing on your own environment, then you can set your own IP over here. Let's do that. So the first command is get system interfaces. This command basically gives you an output of all the interfaces, and if they have any kind of an IP address. If they have it, it will show up. If they do not have it, it'll just show up 00. Okay, so I'll hit enter. Okay, and I can see a lot of information with respect to port 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And if you look over here, the port 1 is saying DHCP, and I have an IP address of 192.168.0.7. Okay, now this is because of my Wi-Fi router, which is a home router, and then I have all my other systems like laptop and TV and mobile Android phones. Those are all connected. So the range that my Wi-Fi router has provided in my home office is 192.168.0./24. So this Fortigate firewall got an IP address of 0.7. Okay, now rest all port 2, 3, and 4, you can see it's all zeros. Again, as I said, all the IP addresses which is not configured, if it is static, not configured, it will show up as 00. Okay. Now, by default, port 1 is implemented or it's configured with DHCP. By default, it comes with this. Okay. So as soon as you hit this, or as soon as you connect this, okay, in an environment. So in my case, my Fortigate firewall is basically connected over here. If you look closely, let me just explain this quickly. Okay, now see over here, this is my Fortigate. Okay, Fortigate is connected to an ISP over here, right? Now this ISP is nothing but my Wi-Fi router. Okay, that's my Wi-Fi router. Now this is connected, okay, and the Fortigate firewall is connected with DHCP, which is on port 1. Yeah, hence I'm getting an IP address over here with the same Wi-Fi range. Okay, coming back. So see, I have an IP of 192.168.0.7. Okay. Now what I'll do is I'll go ahead and quickly. Achha, one thing more. Yeah, before I forget. So the first thing is, once you get an IP address, okay, you'll get this by default in the DHCP. Okay. Once I have this IP address, the next thing is, it does not allow you to access HTTPS if you are working in a VM environment. You have to ensure your HTTP is also allowed, because if it is not, it won't allow you to move ahead. So the first thing that we are going to do is enable the HTTP on port 1. So go to config system interface, edit port 1, set. Okay, and I'll show you first. Okay, see what we have. We have a DHCP, allow access, ping, HTTP, SSH, and FGFM, right? So it does not say anywhere HTTP. Now, again, if you have a registered Fortigate firewall or a hardware Fortigate firewall, it will allow you to access with the HTTPS. But if in case you have a lab environment, it won't. You need to enable HTTP over here as well. So set allow access. I'm going to ping, enable the ping as well. HTTPS is fine. HTTP, SSH, and that's pretty much it for now. Okay, I'll do a show command once more. There you go. Okay, say end. End will basically save the configuration. Okay, and it's all real time. It's not I have to push this configuration. It's all real time. As soon as I make the changes and I type in end, it does save that in real time. Okay, done. So show system interface port 1. If I do this, there you go. I have the HTTP. Okay, and if I do a get system interface, I'll grep this with port 1. Grep port 1 basically means I just want to see at port 1 information. I do not want to see 2, 3, and 4 and further on. Okay, that is what the grep command is. Now again, what is the difference between a get system interface and a show system interface. That's all covered in the course itself. But just to give you an idea, there you go. See, so I have just the information about port 1. Okay, now I know it's 0.7. So what I'll do is I'll go over here and click on 0.7, and there you go. I got the login page. Okay, now I have already saved the username and password over here. So I'll click on just login. And once I do, this is exactly the same setup that you'll also get if in case you have a hardware model or a VM environment. In both cases, this is exactly the same. Okay, you will be asked, you will be prompted to put up your host name, your password, the upgradation, and all that stuff. So you click on begin. Okay, this is just one time that you have to do it. Hostname. So again, hostname we'll be doing this, but a little later, because we'll be doing the interface configuration first, and then we'll come into the hostname. So as of now, just click on later. It will ask for the dashboard setup, as in, would you like to keep the dashboard as an optimal dashboard or a comprehensive? What's the difference? To put this in a nutshell, optimal basically means it's going to show you the most used monitors in the Fortigate firewall. Comprehensive is like it will show you the extensive monitors that you can use in your environment to monitor the firewall on a greater detailed level, interfaces, IPsec, bandwidth, and whatnot, HA and everything. Okay, so again, this is something which we can cover up later, but as of now, let's put it up as okay. Optimal, when just need the basic setup. And then the next thing it will be asking is that, hey, you know what, you are logging into FortiOS 7.0, and these are the feature guide, the new information which is available. So again, it will prompt you every time that you log in. So the best thing is you say don't show again, so that whenever you log in, it won't prompt you again and again onto this. So click on OK. I'll get the widget or the dashboard with the the default or the optimal FortiView monitors. Okay, now again, the first thing which you have to do is to go into the network interfaces. Okay, now over here we haven't actually configured anything, to be very honest, right? If you remember, I said that port 1 is your DHCP, correct? So in the DHCP environment, it already got an IP address. It's not that I have done anything on it. It already got this IP address because I am connected to my Wi-Fi router with this ISP, right? So port 1, it was doing a DORA process. As we all know, in DHCP, a DORA process happened, and port 1 was able to fetch an IP address in 0.7 range. And this is my gateway, 0.1. That's my Wi-Fi router. And this guy has provided me 1.1 as a DNS and 1.0.0.1. Okay. So this is the configuration which I got automatically with the help of DHCP, right? Now, if we go over here into the topology that we use, okay, I'm going to quickly show you one thing over here. So see, I have a couple of PCs over here. Now this belongs to abc.com. Yeah, this is, let's say for example, you work for the company abc.com, and inside this you have a couple of machines which is part of a LAN segment. This is my LAN segment. Yeah, 172.16.32.0. Okay, now in this particular segment, I have sales PC, IT PC. There's a user PC that's this is FortiEMS, which is a Forti client server which is being used. Again, this is part of the course. And AD server, again, this is like AD authentication, Fortinet single sign-on for everything. Those kind of authentication labs, we use this AD server as well. Okay, and the two firewalls we have, Fortigate North and Fortigate South. This will be acting as a in HA, but again, that's for a different video. But for now, let's ensure what we have. So I have my Fortigate firewall powered up. Okay, the switch is already running. I have also powered on one of my PC. Okay, now again, this PC belongs to the segment of 172.16.32.0 range /24. So port 3 also has to be in the same range, correct? Now what I'll do is I'll use port .1 as the gateway for all the other systems that we have inside the organization, and port 1 will act as the default gateway for moving everything out. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. Now we know that we have a .20 over here, so 172.16.32.20 will be your sales PC configuration, and 32.1 will be your port 3 of the Fortigate firewall. Okay, so let's move on to the configuration. Okay, now over here we'll go into the interfaces. Now I know this is configured by default, right? We'll go into port 3 now. Now as a role, I'm going to say that, you know what, this is my LAN segment. Okay, as an alias, I can also put up as inside. Inside is an alias so that it will show up before port 3 that this port 3 is having an alias of inside. Okay, next thing is the IP address. So I'll put up as 172.16.32.1/24. Okay, I'll be enabling the ping because I need to, maintain the connectivity. So how do I check that? With the help of ping. So I'll do this. Now you can of course enable HTTP or HTTPS and SSH if you want to access this Fortigate firewall from port 3 as well. If you want that, absolutely you can go ahead and enable this. If not, then you do not need to. Okay, again, this is your customer's environment. You need to check that. As per my suggestion, I always suggest that a firewall should never be accessed from the outside or from an outside interface. It should always be from the inside interfaces as a security best practices. Okay, so this is it. And I'll take care of all these details a little later. We'll keep it short and simple for this video. So click on OK. Now we have port 3 configured. Now, if you look closely, the alias inside, it's coming up over here. And then, the next thing is port 3. So this basically gives me a quick understanding of why this port 3 is being used. The same thing I can go and do for WAN 1, my port 1 as well. I'll just put up as outside. Okay, so I'll know that, okay, my port 1 is WAN and it is being used as an outside. So we are currently connected on the interface. Are you sure you want to continue? Yes, of course. There you go. So you have an outside as well. Okay, now inside, outside configured. Now the next thing is, let's look into over here. So we did the WAN interface, we have done the LAN interface, and then we'll be going for the DMZ, right? Let's see. So what I'll do is, I do not have a setup where I can use this. Okay, so let's leave the DMZ section for now. Let's move on to the next part, which is the hostname configuration. Okay, now I'll quickly explain you the logic behind when you're using the hostname. What's the logic behind that? See, when we are talking about hostname, the first thing which I've said is location or functionality or model or network setup. What does it mean? See, what happens is whenever we are talking about location or functionality, okay, what I'm trying to tell you over here is that your host name, just by logging into your Fortigate, even if you're doing an SSH or you're doing the web GUI, it should give you an idea that which firewall are you logging into. For example, if it is your DMZ firewall, let's say you have multiple firewalls in your organization. If you're logging into a firewall which is taking care of your server farms, then that should be called as farm firewall or DMZ firewall, or whatever name as per your company requirements, you should be giving that. So hostname really plays a lot of role in identifying what kind of firewall and what kind of location that particular firewall belongs to. Okay, so this is what we have to look for. And the next thing which we have to understand is, if it is not on the basis of your locality or the setup where the deployment is, then it should tell you where exactly the firewall is from a network level. For example, it could be ISFW, which is internal segmentation firewall. Internal segmentation firewall basically means it's an internal firewall where it could be situated at a LAN level, looking into LAN segments, accounting departments, IT departments, catering to those kind of people. Or it could be at a different level, such as DCFW, which is data center firewall, again looking into a specific location, right? So these kind of names you should be coming up with. If customer is not really sure of what name that you should be giving, then at least you have to look into all these things and then give it a name. Again, name really gives a lot of information about where exactly the firewall is situated, installed, and what's the purpose of it. So think about that kind of a environment and then give a name to it. Okay, now So location and function, model and network setup. So what we are going to do over here is, in this section, I know that it's part of the abc.com, and this is the north region of my Fortigate firewall. So which is why I've said Fortigate North, okay, because this and abc.com is in a northern region. So that is why I've said Fortigate North. Just for the lab purposes, you can absolutely give it a different name as well, as per your customer or client's requirement or the location that it is situated to. Okay, now there are multiple ways of handling this. One way is to basically come into your system, okay, go into the settings, and over here you have the host name, right? So you can put up over here as Fortigate North. Either you can do this, or you can also come into the CLI and say admin and the password. Once that's done, you say config system global, because again, it's a global setting that you're going to change over here. So that is why config system global. Even the command itself is self-explanatory. You're configuring something on a system level, and that system setting is actually applied on the global level. Okay, hence config system global. And then over here you set host name. Okay, you can also put it up as Fortigate North over here. Okay, so if you do this, this is also fine. If as soon as I hit enter by this command, you will see that the Fortigate VM64, this will be gone and it will be covered up with Fortigate North. Okay, so end. There you go. See this? So this is how you have changed the hostname as well. Now see, again, I'll do this. I haven't refreshed it. So if I refresh, you will see the change over here. Okay, refreshed. There you go. Fortigate North. Yeah. So this is again the reason and the logic behind using the host name, and what's the point or the what logic you should be having before you configure any kind of host name. Okay. Next. So once this is done, the next is the route. Now see, route is a very vast topic, to be very honest, but if you really look into the crux of it, where exactly you will be looking into routes, or where exactly you will be needing routes, right? That's the point. So either you will be looking into the default, as in a firewall should know that if in case this firewall is receiving a traffic, where it should be forwarding it. Yeah, so if you have directly connected interface, that's absolutely fine. You do not even need to have a route for it. But for every other route which the firewall does not know about, you need to have some kind of a location where it can forward the traffic to, which is also called as forwarding information base, or FIB in the routing terminologies. So a firewall should always have a route where it can forward unknown traffic, or traffic which can be forwarded for a better route lookup. So default route is that. It could also be your ISP. It could also be your MSSP. It could also be your MPLS network. That again depends on your customer environment, but it should have one default route at least. Okay. Now, next, it is always recommended or suggested. Even when we used to work in TAC, we used to recommend and suggest that you should have specific routes. Okay, /16/24 is okay. /18, 20, 26, 28, whatever it is, very specific, and you should know from where the traffic should be coming in and where the traffic should be going out if you're talking about the static routes. Okay, so this has to be taken care of by discussing with the internal team, maybe the network team. You should know about all those things. Okay, so whenever you are creating a route, you need to ensure those routes are connected, your gateway is reachable, because if your gateway is not reachable and you're creating a route, it won't make any difference, right? So this is the point. One default route followed by multiple specific routes if possible, if you have a static route in place. If you have dynamic routes, then it's a totally different game, and we can discuss about that later. But as of now, you need to have one default and whatever specific routes that you can. Okay, now let me show you that. So default to the edge router and specific routes, right? So let's look over here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do into the network section. Okay, what we did was till now interfaces configured with inside and outside. Okay. The next thing is the static routes. And of course, we do not have anything right now. So one thing is you can go ahead and create a default route, and I'll point this to my my Wi-Fi router, which is 192.168.0.1. Okay. Now I'll show you one thing. I'll click on this blank space. Okay. There you go. See, it automatically understood that, okay, this IP address is reachable via port 1. Okay. Now, if you have a DHCP environment, it will ask you that, would you like me to take up a dynamic gateway that I have, or would you like me, would you actually like to specify a different IP? Well, that's again up to your environment. Normally, your DHCP server should not be your default gateway. That's the if you look into the corporate environment, or if you look into the best practices of a corporate, your DHCP server should not be your default gateway. It should assign IP address, that's fine, but your default gateway should always be your edge router. Okay. So again, let's say for in this example, I'm just putting this as 0.1, and this is my edge router. Okay. You can also do that. Admin distances, and there's one thing which is called as priority. This is actually a very good concept of ECMP, equal cost multiple path, which we'll talk about later, and it's also discussed in the course itself, but it's a brilliant concept and really works well. So let's take this up as a default gateway. Okay, and I have a default route in place. Now again, I can create multiple more routes if required. For example, let's say 10.10.10.0/24, and I can say, this is reachable via 192.168.0.10, which is my other side, Fortigate East. Okay, it's in the same WAN segment. So I have 0.7, 0.8, 0.9, and 0.10. Okay, so I can just forward this traffic to Fortigate East, and I can say, all right, the backend side of the 10.10 segment is over here. It will be forwarded to Fortigate East, and then Fortigate East will take care of the rest. Okay, so I can do this also. Now, so I'm not adding this configuration, but this is just to tell you what are the reasons and logics behind configuring a static route. Okay, now that's done. Let's look into the next one, which is the DNS configuration. Okay, all right, so DNS, internal or public. Now again, when we are talking about internal or public, what I'm talking about is DNS is very sensitive now. If from the last couple of years, what we have seen is that a lot of attacks which is happening in the organization is not on your core servers, is not on your core router, but actually on your DNS servers or your DHCP server for that matter. Why? Because DNS server is that database which a hacker can really reuse it on the basis of what kind of fully qualified domain names or what kind of websites that you're accessing. And on the basis of that, it can create some fake websites present to you and make sure it gets the right credentials. Okay, it can really do this. So which is why it is always suggested never to use a public domain or public DNS server. Okay, in corporate environments, never ever. If it is a very small, like a SMB, a small medium business, I'll still say no, but if it is not, there's no other choice, then probably yes. So my point is, when it comes to DNS, always make sure that you are having your own private internal DNS somewhere in the DMZ farm, or it could be in your LAN segments. That's again a decision which can be taken at a design level, but make sure that you're not using a public DNS at all cost. If you want to just check the connectivity of the Fortigate firewall with the internet and all that stuff for understanding the mechanism, working design, behavior and all that, that's absolutely fine. But if in case you are going for a corporate environment where day in, day out, you are using that, no, it's not recommended. Even we as a tag, we never used to suggest this. Okay, the best practices is always to use your own private DNS servers. Okay, now, so again, public only for testing, monitoring and all those, just to figure out whether everything is working the way it is supposed to. If it is working, go ahead and switch it on to an internal DNS server. So let me show you now. So in this case, what we are going to do is, so this is the DNS section, network DNS. Okay, now by default, firewall or the Fortigate firewall is going to use the FortiGuard servers. Okay, now these FortiGuard servers are the one which is available across the globe, and these are secure FortiGuard service, or I should say secure DNS service, which can be used to resolve any kind of websites. Again, having said that, never ever it is recommended. It is always recommended to use your own private DNS servers. So you say specify, and then you can, let's say for example, I have 172.16.32. Let me see. So I can use my AD server as a DNS server also. AD server can be used as a DHCP, DNS, and a lot of other servers can be configured, which I normally teach in my course also. So AD server, right? So have an IP address of .3. So I'll go ahead and say 172.16.32.3. There you go. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, 172.16.32.3. And if I do not want to use any other servers, I can just put it up as blank. Okay, so this will make sure that I'm using my internal DNS server and my DNS queries are not going outside the organization, which is always should be the case. Recommendation and best practices. Okay, so we can use this, all right, or you can use any other server, whichever is in your organization. You just need to make sure that the Fortigate firewall has the basic connectivity to that particular DNS server, and that's it. Okay, so this is the DNS server setup that is required. Okay, always internal, never public. Just public is just for you can say testing or monitoring. That's it. Nothing not for anything else. Okay. The next comes up as internet connectivity. Okay. Now, internet connectivity is to have a couple of things: UTM updates, licensing, and FortiGuard connectivity. Okay. Now see, whenever I talk about internet connectivity, end of the day, FortiGate firewall is a security device, right? Just like your system has an antivirus software and has to update itself on a daily basis so that it can protect your system from various kind of virus or malicious softwares out there, or any kind of penetration that can happen. It protects your systems from that. In the same manner, your FortiGate firewall is also a security device which requires updates on a daily basis from FortiGuard secure servers to ensure that your UTM is up to date, your AV, IPS, application control, and DNS filters, web filter, every kind of UTM filter that you use, it is updated with the correct information. One. Second is that your FortiGuard licensing, as in once you purchase a FortiGate firewall, it also comes with something which is called as licensing of maybe 2 years, 1 year, or 5 years, whatever the case may be. It has to update itself. It has to update that the licensing is correct, the hardware model is correct, the serial number is correct. So this information has to be synced with the FortiGuard servers, and once this is connected and synced, your FortiGate will work brilliantly, smoothly, and it will be able to make sure that there's no kind of attacks happening on your network if your UTM profiles are applied correctly. Again, sir, quote, double quote onto it. So this is for this, you need to have internet connectivity in place. Now, if in case you want to ensure that this internet connectivity is there, you have to have a default route which should point to your ISP or your edge router, and that should take care of your internet connectivity. Okay, now just to show you how that works. So UTM updates, licensing, and FortiGuard connectivity, for these are the major things which you really require an internet connectivity. I should also add one more point, which is VPN. Okay, so VPN is also very important. Okay, VPN, again, if you are creating a VPN tunnel with, let's say, another firewall, okay, then in that case also you need internet connectivity, right? So for all these things, you need some kind of a system in place where you can configure or forward the traffic. Okay, now in our setup as well, what we have done is, if you look into the static routes, we do have a static route in place, and I do have the connectivity. Now, how will I check this? Sorry, admin, password, logged in. Now there's a command which is called as execute, and I'll say ping, and I'll say Google DNS server, which is 1.1.1.1, hit enter, and there you go. So I do have the connectivity. Now this just shows me that I have a layer 3 connectivity. What about layer 4 and above? Okay, is my DNS resolution happening or not? How will I check that? So again, you do an execute ping, and I'll say www.google.com. Now see, this is giving me a resolution. So this basically means that my FortiGate firewall has one, the default route. Second, my DNS resolution is also happening. So my DNS connectivity is also there. My default route is also there. And I'm able to forward the traffic from the FortiGate firewall also, right? So this basically makes sure my connectivity is in place. Okay. Now this basically brings us to the end of the session for today, which was more about the basic connectivity which needs to be taken care when it comes to the FortiGate firewall. Okay, interface, hostname, default route, DNS, and internet connectivity. Okay, now the whole point of having these set things in place is now, regardless of whether you are working in a small environment or whether you are working in an ISP level, these are the 5 steps that is like bare minimum. Whatever kind of environment you are working on, these are the 5 basic things which will be taken care by any point of time by any customer or any organization, right? You just need to have the right logic of why you are using it and when you're using it. Okay, what I want from you guys is to comment down below on what you want from to be covered on, apart from what we have covered in the basic configuration. What else do you want? Do you want to get into the interface configuration on a deeper level with virtual interfaces, VLANs, aggregates, or you want to have this with the firewall policies? Whatever it is, I want you to comment down below and let me know, so that I can go ahead and create more videos on it, and we can discuss a lot more with respect to the FortiGate firewall. See you all, and hope to see you real soon in the next video. Thank you. Bye bye.